Let me hear a sample first.
She's a nut girl. That's pretty good, huh? Don't put that in the video, right? No. Hey everyone, in today's video, I'm gonna teach you guys how to deadlift. This video is gonna be time-stamped and categorized so that you can easily navigate to whatever makes most sense for you. It'll have what equipment you need or don't need to deadlift, whether you should sumo or conventional deadlift, and then I'll break out into the execution and setup for both conventional and sumo. If you guys are new here, hello, my name is Meg. My best deadlift is 408 pounds. I did it quite some time ago, but that is still my best deadlift. Grid, what's your best deadlift?
502.
502. If you guys want to participate, please comment your best deadlift, or if you're a brand new lifter, comment what you're looking forward to hitting. Like, what's your next milestone that you're looking forward to? Let's get into it. Let's talk equipment first. First of all, you don't need anything. You can deadlift barefoot, naked if you want. But if you wanted to wear shoes, maybe your gym forces you to wear shoes, you wanna find something that has a flat, non-compressible sole. So what do I mean by non-compressible? There's not too much cushion to absorb the force that you're trying to put into the ground so that you can lift the bar. So this, for an example, this is my Hoka running shoe. Super chunky, very compressible. Lots of volume here as far as the sole goes. A Chuck Taylor is gonna be something that has a lot less volume, and it's also a little bit harder and flat so that you can continue contact and lift a little bit heavier and have more contact with the ground. You can lift barefoot. Lots of people use like deadlift socks or just regular socks. You do want to make sure that you're not on a surface to where you can slip, especially if you're doing sumo deadlifting, and of course you're respecting the rules of the gym that you are training in. A little tip that someone gave me once is most of the time if you wear long black socks, gym staff won't realize that you're not wearing shoes. That's a hack. Use it or don't. Another good option is a CrossFit shoe. Now CrossFit shoes are made to do multiple different things. So lifting, so it's that flat, non-compressible sole, but also they're a little bit more comfortable than something like a Chuck, in my opinion. So they're more versatile shoe, but could be used still for deadlifting. People often ask me what's in this bucket. It's from Home Depot, but it's just chalk. Chalk is something that is going to be essential once you get up to a certain amount of weight. So what the chalk does is it increases the friction in my hand against the barbell so that the barbell doesn't slip out of my hand. We'll talk more about grips and how you can use a mixed grip to help your grip. A block of chalk, you can keep it in a plastic bag if your gym doesn't have them. If your gym doesn't allow chalk and you wanna be sneaky, I'm sorry gym owners, I'm teaching people how to be sneaky. It's gonna be something that's just necessary for your safety. This is even called secret stuff, like, ooh, sneaky, sneaky. Liquid chalk is just magnesium and alcohol. This is how it applies, so this hand has no chalk on it, and it looks a little sus. Anyway, when it dries, it should look like this hand. I swear to God, just trust me on this one. Liquid chalk usually works really well. It's just alcohol and magnesium. Socks are straightforward. You're gonna wanna keep the bar really close to your shins, and so having some kind of barrier like long socks or even leggings are gonna be something that you might find helpful, so you don't scrape the bar. Belts. Of all the pieces of equipment that I have in my list, a belt is the only one that really requires some know-how before you start using it. Everything else you can use beginner level. You just need to learn how to breathe and brace properly so that you can use the belt. The purpose of the belt is to increase intra-abdominal pressure so that I can create a rigid torso and I can lift easier, lift stronger, and protect my spine all the while. I will make a separate video covering breathing and bracing specifically. Maybe that'll be my next video. Let me know if you want to hear it. You can see I have a couple different belt options here. This one is made out of nylon and Velcro. So it's very straightforward. This one's from Strong Supply. Soon to be, we'll come back to that later. Anyway, I'll link this whenever it's available in brand. Will not be named yet at this moment in time, okay? So this belt is, first of all, not as rigid as some of the others that I have. I feel like this is a really good beginner belt because it's more affordable than the other options. It's also more flexible and more comfortable. It can also roll up and fit in your gym bag really easily. A much more bulkier option is something like these suede and prong belts. So I have a prong, and I also have one that uses a lever as the enclosure. So if you compared my kind of starter belt, it's not just a starter belt. I use this belt, and also weightlifters use typically use a more flexible option because their movements are a lot more dynamic than just the deadlift. It's not just made for beginners. All kinds of people can use this kind of belt, but you can see the difference. Some people prefer a little bit more minimal of a design and don't want something so heavy and thick. This is a 7mm belt and it is a single prong, goes around the same way. The enclosure is just a prong. So this, if you look at a powerlifting competition, people who are lifting massive weight, not all of them are wearing belts, but if they are wearing a belt, usually it's gonna look something like this, or it will have a lever. Regardless, it's gonna be something that has some thickness and definitely some weight to it. Next piece of equipment, straps. Just like the belts, you can find different styles of straps. These are a quick release weightlifting strap. I find that they work really well for deadlifts. Straps are usually a very affordable piece of equipment. It's not something that everyone needs, but it will help you as you start to get more advanced in your training. So if you ever have something programmed where it's really heavy, there's a lot of reps, you're doing something like an AMRAP set that stands for as many reps as possible, you might find that your grip starts to fatigue and fail before your posterior chain does or before your lower body does. A strap will make it so that you can kind of continue to go past the strength of your grip. You just throw on your straps like another bracelet, and usually the logo will be facing you so that you can read the logo yourself. And then you loop the end of the strap around and then grip, and then you can kind of tighten up and find comfort that way. Do that on both hands, and then you will have a much stronger connection to the bar, and you can lift heavier than you would otherwise for more reps, for more overall total volume. The barbell isn't the only implement that you can use straps for. You can also use them for dumbbells, to which you would just do the same thing. Could be really helpful on things like really heavy dumbbell RDLs or really heavy rows, so that you can do more reps, more weight, more overall volume, and get stronger. Who doesn't want that? The only other piece of equipment that I didn't really touch on in the gym was baby powder. So this is gonna be more obscure, but sometimes you might see what looks to be chalk, and a lot of people think that it's chalk on the legs of powerlifters when they're competing, but that's actually baby powder. It helps the bar slide up the thighs whenever you are deadlifting. Oh, let's talk about grips. Okay, you're gonna see me when I go heavy, I'm taking a double overhand grip, meaning one hand's facing you, one hand's facing me. When you're just getting started, if you have like light weight on the bar, I want you to do double overhand. You will start to feel when it gets heavy enough that you are ready to switch to mixed grip. So I usually always take double overhand warm-ups to a certain point, and then I switch to mixed grip. There is a slight increase of risk as far as when you're having this mixed grip possibility of tearing your bicep, but that's not a super common injury that we see, and a lot of times we see it with strongmen. So super tall, huge guys who are lifting more than you and I could ever imagine. I did just imagine it just now though. I imagined it for 1 second, and then I came back to reality. This is my reality, you know what I mean? Just kidding. This is your double overhand. Both hands are facing towards you. This is your mixed grip. My right hand is always facing out. You might be the opposite. It really just depends. Try both and see how you feel. And then some powerlifters will pull what we call a double overhand hook grip. So a hook grip is basically when you wrap your 4 fingers around your thumb. Not a super comfortable position, but I just thought I'd add it in there. Whenever you become powerlifting national champion, state champion, whatever, you might want to consider double overhand. Typically, it's more common in the sumo pulling position. And yeah, that's that. Okay, let's go into what the difference is between sumo and conventional. So there are obvious differences. In sumo, your feet are wider and your hands are inside the legs. In conventional, your feet are much more narrow and the hands are just outside the thighs. Positionally, that means a couple different things. That different position has effects on the knees, on the hips, on the torso angle, and the back angle, which is going to be really important. That's probably the biggest difference, is your torso angle in conventional is more leaned over and sumo is more upright. So what that means is that conventional is much more taxing on the back and the erectors, and since you have more knee extension in the sumo position, it's gonna be more taxing on your quads and your adductors. You might still be confused as to figure out like which one is gonna be best for you, and this is gonna depend on a couple of different things. So height-wise, typically shorter and lighter lifters prefer sumo, and taller tend to prefer conventional. In regards to limb length, conventional favors like long arms and a shorter torso, and sumo favors short arms and a longer torso. If you tend to have like tight hips, you might not love the wide position of the sumo stance. You can sumo without external rotation, which might be a little bit friendlier on the hips, but conventional just might be more comfortable for you because of that. If you hate how you feel your conventional deadlifts in your low back, then I would definitely try sumo position. That more upright torso means less shear force through the low back, and it could be a better option for you. If you're competing, the bar will travel less distance in the sumo stance. That doesn't mean that all competitors choose sumo. They kind of consider their limb length and their height, but plenty of powerlifters choose the sumo stance. It doesn't mean that it's gonna automatically be their best stance, but lots of them do it. My recommendation would be to start with conventional for about 8 weeks when you're just getting started. Stick with that one before switching over to sumo. You could try vice versa if sumo just naturally feels more comfortable for you, but you want to experiment with one for a period of time and then switch so that you have something to compare it to. Okay, let's go straight into our conventional setup. So I'm going to run through a list of things, and this is specifically speaking conventional, and then if you want to skip to sumo, that'll be bookmarked or timestamped so that you can go switch to that section if you need to. Okay, so first for the conventional stance, you're gonna set up with your feet hip width or slightly more narrow. Your toes are gonna be pointed straight forward. Some people like to do this vertical jump test. So you do a vertical jump as high as you can, and you note what stance you naturally gravitate towards when you take that jump. That vertical jump test could show you the position that you feel most strong or most comfortable. But basically, you just want to be comfortable in your conventional stance. Some really, really strong conventional pullers set up in a lot wider than what I'm suggesting. So you'll see this in like strongman competitions or like those heavyweight strongmen like Eddie Hall, Brian Shaw. You'll see that they have a much wider stance. That's so that their gut can fit between their thighs. Typically, not all the time, but typically they'll just have a wider stance than most conventional pullers. Next, in regards to stance, you should see the barbell intersect your foot at the laces. You'll be close to the bar, but you don't want to bang your shins against the bar before you even start. Next, you're going to grip the bar where your arms naturally fall to your sides. You want to make sure you don't go longer and have like a wider grip. That's gonna mean you have to pull the bar longer and you have a longer range of motion. If this is the first time you're deadlifting, like I mentioned, take a double overhand grip. Once you've gripped the bar, then you wanna pull the bar into your shins. You're gonna engage your lats and depress your scapulae. So this is a cue that I like to use. It's called packing your lats. To understand how to depress your scapulae, you want to think about shrugging your shoulders and then moving your shoulders as far away from your ears as you can. You're kind of gonna like put your lats sort of in a pocket. You're gonna pack your lats so that you can have a more rigid upper back and that back isn't moving throughout your deadlift. Another way to do this and kind of turn on your lats before you deadlift is to think about pointing the crook of your inner arm towards the wall in front of you. So you grip it and then your inner arms go in front of you. So facing the wall in front of you. Next, for hips and shoulder position in the conventional deadlift, I want you to watch this clip where you can see all the different hip height positions I could take for the deadlift. And depending on your build and your limb length, you might have a higher or lower position than me in my videos. But basically, we want to bend the knee slightly and find a hip height that feels comfortable and isn't too low, so that when it's too low, you kind of squat the weight up, and that basically looks like the hips rise until the bar leaves the floor. And for shoulders, you want to line those shoulder blades above the midfoot when you set up. For conventional, your shoulders should be slightly in front of the bar, not a ton in front of the bar, but think about where your shoulders and hips are at your start position, and the thing connecting shoulders and hips is your spine. You want to find a spine position or back position in the neutral range. So I say neutral range, not just neutral spine, because neutral is not really a fixed point. It is a range, and it's going to look different from lifter to lifter, and it's something that will look different from set to set for you. Last is your head. Try to find a point of focus in front of you, like 6 feet in front of you on the ground, to keep your neck and head in the same position. To be fair, I do not do this, but I feel like when you get started, it is a good focal point so that you can focus on your form. Okay, so you're set up. I just told you a bunch of stuff, but let's actually execute the lift. So you're all set up, you're in your start position. You want to initiate the pull by pushing your feet through the floor. Throughout the entire lift, you're keeping the barbell close to the shins and close to the body, not letting that barbell creep out away from you through any time of pulling. One cue that I like is to think chest up while you're pulling. That will help you stay in that neutral spine range. And when you pass the knee, then drive your hips forward and bring the shoulders back to complete the lift. I could make another video on common mistakes that we see in the deadlift, but one mistake that I see all the time is people basically reversing this movement. The pull on the way up is trying to look exactly like the pull on the way down. You actually want to just break at the hips to set the bar down. Okay, and that is the conventional setup and execution. Let's talk about sumo next. When I pulled my 408, it was in the sumo stance, you guys. What about you, Grid?
It was in sumo too.
See? We're sumo boys. I am lifting conventional currently because I'm getting ready for my wedding, and I have some dresses that like show my back on my wedding week, so I'm trying to have my rectors look like pow. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
All right, let's set up for a sumo. For stance, you're gonna find a stance that allows your shins to be roughly perpendicular to the floor at the start of the pull. You're gonna need to drive your knees out to meet the bar. The shins are roughly vertical. That's just a starting point. You might adjust this in the future. For grip, you're gonna grip where your arms are directly below your shoulders. It's gonna be more narrow than your conventional, and kind of where your arms are longest. Keeping the arms long is gonna be a good cue for you throughout your deadlifting career. Again, you don't wanna go wider. You're gonna have a longer range of motion and more room to pull. You do wanna make sure that your hands are on the knurling, so kind of like the rough part of the barbell. If this is your first time that you're deadlifting, again, take that double overhand grip. You can always try a mixed grip as you get more and more comfortable with the movement. Third, you wanna pull that bar into the shins, but with your lats. So, engage and depress the lats. Remember, think about the shoulder shrug and depression. You're gonna kind of think about bringing the traps away from the ears and point the crook of your arm towards the wall in front of you. Advanced lifters may want to actively protract in their deadlift, and that's something that I can cover in another video. Since you're watching a how to deadlift video, I'm gonna assume that you're somewhat beginner, maybe intermediate, and trying to improve your form. Many powerlifters will actively try to protract in order to keep their arms long, but that's something that we can cover in a future video. Don't worry about it right now. Don't worry about it. Okay, next, hip position. So I want you to watch again in this clip. You'll see all the different hip height positions I could take for the sumo deadlift. Depending on your build and your limb length, you might have a higher or lower hip position. The sumo deadlift will have lower hips when compared to your conventional form, and of course that more upright torso. We still wanna make sure the hips aren't set too low, because what you get, and I used to do this, is you'll start pulling the bar, and your hips are raising, but the bar is not moving. So you're wasting seconds while your hips are trying to get in their right start position in order for you to move the bar. So there's no sense in you pulling for an extra 2 seconds and possibly missing a lift in competition or missing a lift in training because you were just wasting your energy. So find that right start position, and that might mean recording your lifts to find if you're starting to do this and notice if you're starting to raise the hips before the bar is moving at all. Next, shoulders. You wanna line the shoulders over the bar at the start of the pull, slightly over the bar. When you're finding the shoulder and hip position, try to kind of like wedge yourself into your start position. So you create some tension on the bar, you pull the slack out of the bar, and you kind of find the wedge to where you're kind of pulling yourself into your own start position. Let's execute the lift. Similar cues apply, but now we're gonna change them a little bit for sumo deadlift. You're going to push your feet through the floor, but you also might want to think about spreading the floor apart. For me, I don't love the cue of spreading your feet apart because I find that if I have a vertical shin, I'm already able to push down directly into my feet. But I'm gonna give you the spread the floor cue. A lot of people like it and a lot of people find it helpful. So spread the floor, push down into the floor, kind of like a leg press. And that spread the floor can be super helpful if you have a very wide stance. So instead of just pushing your feet through, you push your feet out against. And I also like the cue of thinking about bringing your toes towards the top of your shoe, if that makes sense. Kind of like you would in a bench press to get that leg drive. Last key for sumo is once the bar passes your knees, you wanna think about turning your hips and your glutes on and driving those glutes forward. When you initiate the pull, it's gonna be so slow off the floor. It's gonna be so much slower than your conventional, sadly. So you do need more patience with the sumo pull, but you might find that it moves a lot quicker once you're patient, once you get it that first 2 inches, and it might fly up the rest of the lift. Typically, when a sumo deadlift is missed, it is off the floor or maybe at the lockout or maybe throughout any part of the lift. It really depends. Okay, well, that's all for this video on how to deadlift. Let me know what you guys think. And again, don't forget, let me know your deadlift goal, what your current best deadlift is, and your deadlift goal. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. And of course, if you need a training program, my #1 tip to get a big deadlift: improve your technique, deadlift frequently, and get on a program. And join Stronger by the Day. So Stronger by the Day is my program. It is only $9.99 a month. $9.99 a month, and you can join. There's 18,000 current members on Stronger by the Day. It's an amazing program. App is super convenient, and we're on a deadlift cycle right now. So who doesn't want to get a bigger deadlift? I don't know anybody who doesn't want a bigger deadlift. I really don't. Actually, I did meet one person one time. She literally said to me, she's like, I've already deadlifted 300 pounds, Meg. She's like, what's next? And I'm like, well, obviously 305. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.